Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of a series where we create a design system in Figma called FDS. In this episode, we're doing the buttons. And to complete this episode, I've made a new semantic variable called border mono, because we're going to be doing a tertiary button that has a black label and also a black spinner. So make sure you publish that from this library, and then we'll jump into the web components library. And you can see that new variant for the spinner here. I've just duplicated these and made them the border mono in their different sizes, so we can use them as the loading state for the tertiary mono button variant. Now, let's just zoom out a little bit, go over to the layers, right click, and then go duplicate page. And we're just going to rename this button. Come up to its title and change this as well. Now let's go to component gallery to go and grab the description. And at component gallery, we've just searched for button. So let's just copy and paste this and paste that here. Let's just read it. Buttons trigger an action such as submitting a form or hiding an interface component. That makes sense. Now let's go delete the spinner component and start creating the button component. Okay, so let's add the button label, and you can do that by either coming down here and selecting text or just hitting T on your keyboard, which is what I like to do. I'm just going to click in here and type down button. Right, you can't see it at the moment. Let's just click off it and then select it. We're going to change text L regular to semi-bold, and we're going to give it content primary inverse. Okay, okay. Then we're going to select it again, and then we're going to group it 3 times. So let's go Command G, 2, 3. Right, let's open this up. This one is going to be called label. This one is going to be called content. And this one, you guessed it, button. And with label selected, let's just go add auto layout. You can do that here. Now we're going to zero this out, but on the left and right, we're going to add 4, which is excess. Now that can stay centered for now, but let's test that out. Then we select the content layer, add auto layout, make it horizontal, but change this to 0. Then we select the button layer, add auto layout, change it to horizontal, change this to 0. And then we're going to make this 12 and this 12. Now from here, we can add the fill background brand. So I just typed in back there to get brand up like this. Now we also have to do hug contents and pretty much everything. So let's go and do that. Okay, now the button's starting to take shape. Let's select the button layer again and add a border radius of 12. All right, now let's just zoom in so we can really see what we're doing. And with the content layer selected, we're going to place an icon in the leading and trailing position of the label. So let's go to Assets, select FDS Iconography, and I'm just going to type in plus. Grab the icon plus 24 and just drag it in. Okay, move that to there. Let's change content primary to primary inverse because we want it to be the same color as the label. Then duplicate it, Command D, and then move it to the right of the label. And with that added, let's select button, come up to frame and go create component. So we can start adding variables and properties. And the first one we're going to do is by selecting the label, come up to text, come over here, select this, click the plus button, and then this can be label. Then select the leading icon, come over to appearance, add a variable here, change this to show leading icon, and then come up to the top where we're going to add an instance property. So let's just go leading icon, and we can remove this for now and go create property. And let's do the same for the trailing icon. So appearance, show trailing icon, come up to the top, add an instance of trailing icon, then select the components so we can see if everything's in order. All right, that looks fine. So let's add our first variant. We're going to come to properties and click here and then go variant. We're going to go into its settings, enter size, then come down to value and change this to L. This will be the large button. Then we add the next variant, which is type, and let's rename this to primary. Then we're going to add state, and default is okay here. And after state, we're going to add one more, but I'm going to do it here. So let's go add a comma and then loading equals true. So that's for the spinner variant. Now let's go and select everything, make sure it's all in the right order. And here we go, the label needs to be there, followed by show leading icon and its instance, and then show trailing icon and its instance. So let's just go and test this out. We're going to turn this icon off and this one. We're going to change the label to button label and then turn back on the icon and go and replace it for something else. So we're in the icon library. Let's just add arrow and go and find something that's 24. Cool. And there we go. Let's delete this. Zoom out a little bit because we're going to create the other state variants. To do that, I'm just going to resize this, select the component, hit plus. Now, every time we do that, Figma places this on the top, but we want it at the bottom. Right? So after we move it there, we're just going to make it 16 pixels away, and then come over to state, add a new state called hover, then add another variant, move this down again, add another state called pressed, add another one for the loading state, move that down, and then select the top three ones and change their loading state to false. And we'll replace everything in here with the spinner soon, but before then, we're going to select the hover and change its fill to brand hover, then the pressed and change its fill to brand pressed. So let's zoom in a little bit again, and let's select everything in the content. Select the content layer, and then go and grab the spinner. So we'll just reset this. Go to local assets, go to spinner, grab the spinner and just drag it in, which is much too big. So let's come over here and change this to medium, and then change from primary to inverse. So now we have the default hover, pressed, and loading states of the primary button. Let's zoom out again because we're going to select all of these and make the small versions, right? So I'm going to hold down Command and then just drag. Hold down Alt, Shift, and then drag everything over. And let's just make sure they are 32 pixels away. I'm going to move them all to the bottom of the layers. Then I'm going to go and add new size and then change this to S. Let's zoom in. The label, I'm going to select all of them and change this to M semi-bold. Now something interesting happened there to the alignment. So let's go and select the content and then go select all of them, and you can use the multi-edit variants. And then we're going to change this to align left. So now everything is nice and horizontally centered again. Let's click out of there and then select all the small ones again. And we're going to change the side padding to 8 and the top and bottom padding to 4. And then we're going to reduce the border radius to 8. And one last thing, we're going to go down to the loading state, select the spinner, and then change this to small. Okay, let's just make sure the height of that is the same as what's above it. Right, so that's 24 and this is 32. So we need to go back to that content area, select them all again, and then make sure they're all 24 pixels fixed height. Okay, and that's fixed that as well. Let's zoom out again. And we're going to need a lot more room. So I'm going to come out here, resize this quite a lot. Do the same for this, because we're going to be creating the secondary and then tertiary mono buttons here. by selecting everything, duplicating just like I did before, moving everything to the bottom, then coming over to type and add new, and then adding secondary. Now let's zoom in, and with everything selected, we're going to change their appearance to become the secondary button. And you can do that easily if you just come down to selection colors. Content primary inverse is like the icon and the text at the moment, so we want to change that to secondary. And we want to come down to background brand and just change that to background primary. Then change brand hover to background hover, and then brand pressed to background pressed. Now this button needs a border, so let's go and add it. We're going to come up to stroke, type in border, and select border secondary. And for these last two, we're just going to select the spinner and change type from inverse to mono. We're going to do the same here. Before we do the tertiary button, we're going to select these four, come down and change content secondary to content primary, so everything becomes a little bit darker when you hover or press it. And then zoom back out, duplicate everything like we did before, move it to the bottom, zoom back in, add a new type called tertiary, which doesn't have a border, and select the first two. Let's come down and change this to link, select the second two. This can be link hover, and the last two can be link pressed. And let's go just change the spinners again to primary. Like that. And there's one more type called tertiary mono. Now, a quick way to do that without duplicating all of these and changing everything from blue to black again is to select these, duplicate them, move them to the bottom like we've done before. So we're going to have to do that a couple of times to get to the bottom of that list. And then let's just zoom in and simply remove the stroke. And then make sure we've added the tertiary mono type. And if we zoom out, we've got the primary, secondary, tertiary mono in their states of default, hover, pressed, and loading. And let's just clean this up a bit by selecting the button component and then coming over here and going to layout and then selecting resize to fit. Let's just zoom in a little bit, make sure we're still where we want to be, which is 328 from the top and 48 from the left. All right, let's zoom back out, change the height of this to the height of the component plus, let's give it 64. And that's it for the button component. But we want a button component that looks like a pill and also one that's just an icon. But before we do that, let's zoom in and make sure everything is working. Yeah, the label again. It's fine. If we go to the loading state, it just shows the loading state. Everything else comes back in when you turn that off. Ooh, what's going on? When we turned that off, it went back to pressed. So something is up. Let's go and check out the press state of everything. Yeah, pressed. All right, that seemed to happen here. So this is pressed. Ah, okay. This is why it's great to come back and test things out, because these are not pressed. These are default but loading states. So let's select all of them and come down here and change this to default. Now let's go back up, reset it, go back to primary, default, zoom in again and try that again. Yeah, fine. Everything's great. Let's change to small Okay, we're ready to duplicate this and create the button pill. Let's do that by coming over to the pages and right-clicking and going duplicate page. Just change this to pill. Doing the same here. Selecting the component and renaming this. Then all we're going to do is come over to the side of everything, and a good way to collapse all your layers is just by holding down Option L. Then we're going to go and select everything. And I did that by just holding down Shift and then clicking on the last one. Then we're going to come over to border radius and change this to pill. And there you go. We're done. Let's do that process again. And let's rename it to icon. Come over here. Do the same here. And rename the component to button icon and then zoom in, because we only need this icon here. We don't need any of the labels or the trailing icons. So we're going to select the label, multi-select all of them here and just delete them. Do the same for the trailing icon, and then select the component and delete anything we don't need. And we're going to rename show leading icon to just show icon. And here we can just call this icon. Okay. The padding on this has become a little bit interesting. So what are we going to do here? Let's go and Shift select all of these. So we just get the ones that aren't the spinner. Okay. And then change this to 4. And there we go. Now, these would be better if they were moved over a little bit. So let's just do that. Make sure they're all 32 pixels away. And let's just close this up. Now we have to take these over to the components app library. So we're just going to copy and paste them over there and then set their typeface to SF Pro Text. So let's go back to the button page, click and drag to select everything, and just go Command C, of course. Come over here, duplicate this page, call this button, just like we did before, and then zoom out, delete everything, and then paste this in. Now, a quick way for me to zero everything out is I just add a rectangle and then place it here, and then I go and grab everything and then move that over like this, and I'm done. Now, we're going to select the button component and then come over to Appearance, drop this down, and we're going to go Type, iOS. And all that does is change this from Enter to SF Pro Text. Okay, let's go and bring the other two over here. So let's go back, go to Button Pill, select everything, copy it, come over here. We can duplicate this page, change this to pill, delete everything, paste this in here, do the same zero out trick I did before. Okay, select it and then change this to iOS. And then go grab the button icon. So let's select everything, Command A and then Command C. Come over to here, duplicate this page, change this to icon. Same, but different. Here we go. 0, 0, and then align everything. Now, and since the button icon component doesn't need to change its typeface, we can just come back over to here. Go back to the button. I should zoom in a little bit. Because that's it for this episode. We've created a button, button pill, and button icon for both web and app. And in the next episode, we're going to be doing the button group component. So I hope you're looking after yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.